All right, in this video, I'm going to be going through the syllabus for the clinical practicum experience. I'm going to use this video for both the online third section and online fourth section. So I will point out the one and only difference that it will be depending on which section you are in. Up here at the top has all of my contact information. And so I'm Tiffany Brooks. I'm going to be your group supervisor for this course. And here you will see my Google Voice number. If you haven't used Google Voice before, essentially you will call it. You'll have to, once it prompts you, you'll just have to give your name, and then it'll be filtered over to me. I am located right now right outside of Buffalo, New York, but I am full-time with Lindsay. Here you will see my office hours. They do shift through this semester, so it was just easier to break it up as before Labor Day and after Labor Day. So these are kind of the general times you'll be able to reach me. It does not mean that you can't contact me outside of those times. Just means that these are generally the times that I am most available to you. And so I'll talk about kind of communication practices a little later in the syllabus. There is my email. It is Brooks T. So make sure you include the T. There is an Andrea Brooks who also works for Lindsay Wilson College. And so naturally, you've got to make sure you include the T in order to contact me. So we're going to keep scrolling here. Here's a little bit about the practicum course. Here's the textbooks we're going to be using. So the Erford text, and then of course the DSM. I'm going to keep on scrolling. Here's some additional reading if any of these articles seem interesting to you. You will be required to take the CPCE during internship 2. So I know we're not at that point yet, but it is something to be thinking about and begin preparing for. So if you have not already, I really suggest you beginning to prepare for the CPCE and thus prepping you for the NCE if you're in a state that requires the NCE. This is an requirement. You have to take this exam in order to complete our program. And so you will do that during internship 2. During the course tour video, I will point out the study guide feature that we do have available on Blackboard. You know, you might want to form a study group or begin working through different kind of strategies to begin preparing for the CPCE. It's way less daunting if you start now rather than waiting till your last semester. Here are the course objectives for practicum. You can read through all of that, see kind of what assignments we use to assess what learning objectives. Like we explained during pre-practicum, at some point during either practicum or internship, you must either co-lead or lead a counseling or psychoeducational group. And you must document completion of this experience at some point during your clinical experiences. I know at least one group hour has to happen during internship 1 and 2. So you can't complete all 10 during practicum and then be done with those. All right, so for practicum, you have to have 150 grand total hours. So you need to have 150 hours over the total experience. 60 of those must be direct client service. So like we talked about in pre-practicum, those 60 clock hours should be direct service to clients. So most likely you will start at your site observing, shadowing, and clients will be in the room. That does not count as direct hours. Those would count as administrative hours or indirect hours. When you move into actually co-leading and leading sessions is when that begins to count as direct hours. So work with your site supervisor. They'll be able to tell you, yes, at this point you're co-leading, you're co-facilitating. this would count as a direct hour. They're going to be the ones approving those hours, so they need to be in agreement that you're meeting those standards. You will need to have 1 hour per week of individual or triadic, meaning you, another supervisee, and your on-site supervisor. That needs to happen weekly. If it is not happening, I need you to let me know. That is something that is very valuable. It's very important for your clinical experiences. So please let me know if that is not happening so that it can be properly addressed. We will be meeting for 3 hours every other week, sometimes back to back, and then we'll go 3 weeks in between. It's not a even every other week kind of experience, but you will get the 3 hours 8 times throughout the semester. Maximum number of students enrolled is 12 students. And so just at this point, we're meeting those standards. One thing you'll want to make sure is that your site supervisor is approving your hours regularly. I want you to think about it like a bank. And if you are not having them regularly approving those hours, they do not count until they are approved. Okay. So the more that you have deposited and approved, the better you're going to be at the end of the semester. Flukes happen. We can't control if a site supervisor suddenly dies or suddenly is angry at a supervisee and refuses to approve these hours. So it is your responsibility to be following up with them and making sure that they are regularly approving your hours because they are the person that has the power to do so. In order to pass this course, you have to complete the Appendix A paperwork that you are working on within LiveText at this current moment. And then you also have to do the end of semester documentation portfolio, which is Appendix C of the clinical training handbook. So you will be uploading that, or not uploading that. You will be signing that within LiveText. You will also, once I have graded your tape that you've turned in for this course, you will have to download your rubric. That goes into your end of semester paperwork. I'll talk about that again at the end of the semester because you probably won't remember. Active participation. You are expected to participate actively during group supervision meetings. This means arriving on time, providing critical feedback, engaging in discussions and activities, and fulfilling all requirements for this course. And so I do expect that you be on time, that you be respectful of one another when you're in class. Can't remember if it's in another spot, so I'm just going to say it now. You need to be in a private location when we are meeting for class. And so that involves being in a place where, you can shut the door, lock the door, even where you have headphones so people in another room can't hear what's being discussed. You need to protect the confidentiality of all the clients that are going to be discussed during class. And so it's very important that you treat this like you would a face-to-face class. And so if you are in a location where maybe your family members or your friends or your roommates or your partner are going to be present, then you need to find a place that is separate from everyone else where confidentiality can be kept. It is expected that you attend these group supervision meetings. And so this right here, the clinical experience attendance guideline, this is set out by the program. I actually have not constructed this rule for you. And so I cannot give you any excused absences from group supervision. If you miss class, you may be scheduled to make up for that missed class by attending another practicum class that meets at a different time or obtain a related CE for each class hour missed. Missing one group supervision session, so an hour and a half of class, actually results in 1/2 letter grade reduction. Missing 3 results in a full letter grade, and missing 3 or more may result in having to retake the course and or further grade point deduction. So I really need you guys to be present and not even us have to go down this road. And so as you can see, I don't have much leeway in this policy to be able to approve you to be absent. We don't have that many class meetings. This is the only synchronous course experience, the 3 times you take clinicals during your program. And so we ask that you take that very seriously. Special note for students in Ohio, you will need to register online. So if any of you reside within Ohio, you need to follow those guidelines. Here's the grading scale for the course. I don't use a point system. I use percentages. So these are the percentages required in order to get a certain grade. Here you can access all of the LWC student policies. So just remember you are responsible for this information. I do adhere to our academic integrity policy. I take that very seriously. So you do not need to plagiarize. You don't even need to unintentionally plagiarize. If you are referring to someone else's work, you need to give credit and cite them with an in-text citation and provide a full text reference at the end of your paper. Other policies, such as being respectful, being professional with one another, all of these things I take very seriously and ask that you do too. Some specific policies for me, I expect high level of engagement. So that includes attending class, logging in on time, and not logging out earlier. So if for some reason an extenuating circumstance is going to arise, I need you to notify me ahead of time. Yep, okay, I did talk about privacy, and so confidentiality, so that is outlined there. Please engage in a respectful manner with your classmates. Try to display openness to differing beliefs and opinions and show respect when speaking about your own. All right, late work. Please pay attention to this. I value professionalism. Within the clinical field, if you do not adhere to guidelines, you will get fired. If you do not turn in your clinical notes on time, within 24 hours, most places, you will get fired. And so students get frustrated when I have high expectations about things like deadlines. I do that because our field is not forgiving of these things. So I'm teaching you about professional behavior by having these guidelines in place. And so if an assignment is late, you will lose 5 points for every 24 hours that an assignment is late. So you need to be responsible for turning in your assignments on time. And for some reason you need an extension, you need to email me ahead of time requesting an extension. And only extenuating circumstances are going to merit a no point deduction. I always say this because I want to make sure it's clear. I want to be empathetic and understanding of all extenuating circumstances. I hate to do it, but I have to ask for documentation of extenuating circumstances. Sometimes it seems very insensitive of me to do so. And so I explain it up front so that you know if I do that, it's solely because I'm doing that of everyone. If someone asks for an extension, I ask for documentation. So if you email me and let me know that your aunt has died and that's why you're not going to be able to turn in your case conceptualization, I'm going to ask for documentation that your aunt died. It does not mean that I do not care about that happening and the stress that that's putting on your life. It just means I'm trying to create a fair and equitable learning environment where all the expectations are the same for all students. I do prefer email as the main source of communication. I aim to respond within 24 hours, except on weekends. At times, my reply may only indicate that I received your message, and I will include an estimate of when I can respond with an answer. My personal time is generally Friday at 5 until Monday at 8. This does not mean that you will not hear from me over the weekends. Generally, you will, but it just means that you may not receive that same reply with the same pressure of 24 hours from me. So if you would prefer to talk on the phone or Skype or Google Hangout or Google Meet now it's called, please arrange this with me ahead of time. I love to do that with students. So please don't hesitate to ask. We can set up a time to meet and have that on the calendar. Please only text me in the case of an emergency. All right, so the course requirements. Here you will see a quick overview of all of the assignments for this course and how much they are worth. So this helps you to see kind of where you should be spending your time by how much the assignment is worth. So case conceptualization is 20%, whereas the video presentation is 5%. So you can go through and read this. The synopsis up here is just a short description of the assignment. All right, so you will sign up for a time for your video presentation. So we will do that on the first night of class. Then you will turn in your verbatim. You will actually turn in your case conceptualization and treatment plan on the night of your video presentation. So whatever night you sign up, those 3 things will be turned in. You will present your video, and then you will also turn in your case conceptualization and treatment plan. Then within 2 weeks of your case presentation, you will turn in your verbatim transcript. And then down in the timeline below, it'll show you when your theory paper and when your self-appraisal paper are due. You will have a journal to complete 2 times during the semester. I'll show you the deadline for that and how you will be graded for that. And then just for being professional, prepared, and participating, you will receive credit for that within this course. Here you will see the end of semester evaluation by your on-site supervisor as well as by myself. Essentially, you get passing credit for those if those are filled out. But if you receive a poor evaluation on either of those, it can result in either a lower grade in the course or not passing the course. And then you will have to participate in some type of professional development conference or training. So you have to complete 1 CE for this course. This is to help you guys expand some of your clinical knowledge so you can do a training in some area that you're interested in, as well as starting to learn kind of where you can access these types of trainings and what kind of resources you have at your availability. All right, so here's the course schedule. So depending on which section you are, depends on whether these dates are accurate to you or not. So please, if you are in the other course, make sure that you are using the correct syllabus and that you are accessing the correct dates. The assignments will not change based on the meeting. So the date will be different, but the assignments will be due on that particular meeting. So I hope that's clear. So over here for each week, you will see what readings are required for the night that we meet for class. So what you need to read prior to coming to class. And then on the first night of class, we will select who's going to be presenting on that night as well. My word of caution is generally, even on that first night, I struggle getting through all of this information for that first night of class. So I will try to make sure that I clarify, hey, we're not going to get to chapter 8 in the second meeting. So sometimes the content has to move around because it is higher priority that we get to people's tapes. And then we might have to be flexible when it comes to the course material from the textbook. So just warning you, I tend to have to move stuff around in that case. All right. So disregard the date if you're in the other section. But on the 4th meeting of class, so the 4th class is when your midway journal is due. On the 5th meeting of class is when your theory analysis paper is due. And then on the 7th meeting of class, when you should be working on your end of semester documentation. And then your self-analysis paper is due. Then by week 8, your end of semester journal is due, as well as your end of semester paperwork. All right. So first is the video presentation. So this is 5% of your grade. So you need to be very, very careful with the expectations of this. So you will have to upload your video into Adobe Connect. That is HIPAA compliant. So generally, this says the week following, and that's what was catching my eye. And I was like, oh crap, I never changed that. Oops, apologize for that. That wasn't very professional. But essentially what we're going to do is we will upload the video into Adobe Connect the week previous to you presenting. And once it's uploaded, I can view that at any time, and I will go back in and delete the video when I'm done reviewing that. And so we will have to schedule a time for you to upload into Adobe Connect. So there will be information about how to do that in Blackboard. The hardest thing is that generally our files are so large, it can be challenging to get it into Adobe Connect. So the two things I have found, the number one thing is if you can just compress the video, it works great. You can split it into parts, but then those parts generally still have to be compressed. So I highly recommend just compressing the video, and it generally uploads great into Adobe Connect. So I will put information on Blackboard on how to compress a video for it to work within Adobe Connect, as well as you need to look at all the files that Adobe Connect kind of works with. All right, so I will be using the rubric from LiveText. So this is the rubric, and that's how you're going to be graded. So you get 30 points if I'm able to see and hear clearly, and then you'll receive 70 points if you receive mostly 2s on the rubric. And so you will see here that generally it's expected that students in CHD6003 would have mostly 2s because that's your stage of development at this point. You should be consistently meeting criteria for each of these skills. So these are the skills you learned in your Humanistic and Effective Theories course. They correspond with the Ivy and Ivy textbook. So I do highly recommend looking back at that textbook and getting a review of those micro skills to make sure you fully understand those. All right. So case conceptualization, you will be using the format that is outlined in the clinical training handbook. So you have to go to the clinical training handbook to see that outline. It even provides you an example, so there's no excuse for you not to include all of the correct information into the case conceptualization. This item is due by 11:59 on the night of your presentation. And then the treatment plan as well. So generally, I know a treatment plan would have more than one problem statement. For this course, all I need you to have is one problem statement with 3 attainable and measurable goals. We will talk about attainable and measurable goals. So please, please, please pay attention that night when we go over it in class, because generally students always lose points because their goals and objectives are not attainable and measurable. And then you can read through here to see how you'll be graded. I give you a rubric for every assignment that you do, so you know exactly what you get points for, meaning you also know where you lose points. So use these rubrics when you are doing the assignments for this course. Verbatim transcript. So this takes students way longer than they ever expect. So I only expect you to do this for 20 minutes of the counseling session. So you get to pick which 20 minutes, and then you actually go through and you give a verbatim transcript, exactly what is said, and then you identify what skill is being used, and then also including a critique and a self-reflection. So you need to use those same micro skills from the IV and IV text and say, okay, what skill is this that I was utilizing? As you will see here, being able to identify the skills and reflect is equal worth points. And then you get 20 points for being grammatically correct and using and following the requirements, things like that. I am a stickler on grammar, so you do need to make sure that you're proofreading before you turn anything in to me. Theory analysis paper, this is due within 2 weeks of the case presentation. So this is where you're evaluating your theory of choice, maybe the strengths and the areas of improvement of the theory that you utilized with your client. So you can see here, I apologize. I'm not going to redo this video because of my dog. Hey, Gus, come here. Gus, come here. Come here. Really sorry. But y'all got to hear Gus. Depending on the night, he might sometimes make an appearance in class. He rarely does. So self-appraisal paper, that is worth 10% of your grade. Also, oh, shoot. All right, guys. So see, sometimes me doing these videos is helpful. I need to go through and take that out because these are due on a separate time. So do not pay attention to this part. It is not due within 2 weeks. Theory analysis and self-analysis paper is not due within 2 weeks. All right. So I will make sure both of the syllabi are corrected to show that you will be following the dates as indicated in the timeline above of when those are due. Figure that's in your favor. It gives the majority of you more time to work on those two papers. So, because I do treat the syllabus as a contract between you and I. So if anybody wants to contest that and really wants to turn in all of their assignments within 2 weeks of the case presentation, you can go right ahead and still meet that part of the syllabus. I will welcome any assignments early if it is early for you, depending on when you present. Okay, so self-appraisal paper, this is essentially you are giving an overall assessment of your rapport and interactions kind of at your site and kind of your reactions to the experience. And so once again, here you will see how you will be graded on that. Naturally, reflection is the biggest point of that one. And then the journal. This is not a diary, okay? This is a clinical experience journal. So I want you to be processing what is going on at your site, okay? Don't just get on there and give me I went to my practicum site today, I saw 6 clients, led this group, and I did this one intake assessment. Your hours log gives me that, okay? I need you to be actually talking about these questions. You don't have to talk about every single one of these questions every time. These are just prompts to help you in structuring your journal. So what am I feeling? What am I thinking? Where do I see myself going? What does this mean to me and or the counseling profession? Do these things I am experiencing relate to my past? If yes, how? What do I need to do to better prepare myself? Do others feel like I feel? So allow that all to be a brainstorm. Please pay attention to the formatting requirements. Don't expect a title page, but I do expect this to be in Word, font Times New Roman 12, and double spaced. Here's the rubric on how you'll be graded. And then there's kind of those other items as mentioned earlier. All right, if you have any questions about the syllabus, please jump on the question answer discussion board and ask those there, and I will be sure to follow up. And I will fix those 2 things in both syllabi. And if you have any questions, let me know.